Businesses thrive by knowing customer insights because today's insights are tomorrow's facts. At iResearch, we live and breathe insights. And despite searching high and low, we were unable to find a customer insights podcast that answers one of the most important questions in business. Why do customers do what they do? So we launched one. Hi, I'm your host, Darshan Mehta. I would like to welcome Rick Denton. He is the managing principal at EX for CX, which means execution for a customer experience, a company that specializes in customer experience and voice of the customer programs. He has extensive experience in CX and VOC with over 2 decades of experience in the field. Rick describes himself as a customer experience advisor who works with customer-oriented C-suite and board leaders who need to navigate to increase revenue, reduce costs, and improve experience delivery. He enables companies to achieve experience transformation, guiding them to stop, survey, and score, and start, listen, and act, using a tool, voice of the customer approach. Welcome, Rick. I look forward to talking to you.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. I'm excited about this. Not only am I excited about the topic, but I just think it's kind of cool that we're talking across the globe to each other. And so I realize it's no longer novel, but it's just great to make these connections across the globe like that. So thank you for having me on. This is going to be a lot of fun.
And thanks for joining me. I mean, the world is your oyster these days anymore, isn't
it? Yeah, that's right. Ooh, it's only 9 o'clock, but some oysters. That sounds good. Maybe we'll have to talk about that a little later.
So tell me the aha moments that have put you on the path to become a customer experience expert, voice of customer. What led you on this path?
So I'll have 2 answers to that. What led me on this path was just a natural evolution. My career has been, well, actually, if you want to go all the way back, Anderson Consulting taught this poli-sci major how to code, but I got out of coding as quickly as possible, and they are probably thankful for that as well. But the career was primarily process improvement. There's a Six Sigma black belt in my background. I call it's gray from lack of use. There's project management. There's all this sort of kind of the inside out view of getting things right at a company. It was actually at a Forrester CX conference where it really started to change, where it was, wait a second, there's this whole customer lens that you can apply to that. And we weren't ignorant of it before, we just didn't focus on it. And so it was that, okay, wait a second, how can we understand what the customer is telling us to help inform what are the things that we need to work on to improve? And that was, it was not so much a aha type moment, but more of an evolution into that path. The aha moment, so kind of that second thing that I want to add to that, was really a little later. I just use the word evolution. And there's a lot of customer experience folks that tend to think in that way of I've evolved beyond a process. I've evolved beyond inside out to that focus of outside in. And there was a moment, and I don't know exactly, I can't tell you the date, the time, or anything like that, but there was this epiphany that I had of, wait, why would I think that I need to abandon process improvement? Why would I think I need to abandon project management? That's actually the glue. That's the foundation. That's the element that it creates a sustainability to this outside in customer experience approach. And that was the aha moment. And heck, it's the genesis and kind of the origins of even the company name, Execution for Customer Experience, weaving that outside in of customer with the inside out of process and execution to be able to deliver a great experience for every customer every time. That was the aha moment that really cemented who I am and what I want to be in the customer experience field and the value that I want to give to the clients and help them unlock their tangible business value by focusing on those 2.
Interesting. Can you give me an example that really highlights exactly the distinction you're trying to draw?
Yeah, I'll give you one from the way back past, and there may be one we might talk about another one here. Obviously, clients got to be somewhat confidential, so I'll be vague but specific at the same time. A historical sort of mental epiphany from the past was, imagine this is when I was working for a bank. I was working, and I was an employee at the time. And one of the process improvements that we wanted to work on was our appraisal process. Imagine home equity, mortgage type work. So there's an appraisal that has to be done before the customer can either get their funds from the home equity or move into the home that they so desperately want to be a part of or move into. And we created this project around, okay, how can we make appraisals faster? How can we make them more efficient so that we, the company, could get our appraisals moved, more appraisals through more business, more appraisals, more closings, more fundings, all of that. And there was that moment of, wait a second, great that it helps us, the company, but it also creates a phenomenal customer experience when they know that their friend who went with another funding institution had a 10, 20, God forbid, 30, 45-day appraisal process, and we could get things done in 3 days. And it was that, okay, customers delighted in it. They, of course, then said to all their friends that were looking for their next home mortgage, their next HELOC, whatever it was, you guys need to work with this company because I got closed in a matter of weeks, whereas going somewhere else, I'm going to have to take 45 days. So that was that real tangible element of, by improving the process, improving the execution, we helped the customer. Had we gone out a different direction of asking the customer where the pain points were, we might have come to the same conclusion. That's kind of where I'm talking about, is it's, you've got the two sides of the same coin delivering the same initiative.
Interesting. You just made me think of this. It seems like inherently, a lot of times, focusing on the process is going to run into conflict with the customer experience because the process is focused internally in terms of internal efficiency and stuff. However, if you can turn that into an internal efficiency, but also a tangible benefit to the client in terms of a faster return on the appraisal, right? And I think that's the key. It sounds like that's really the key, as opposed to just focusing on the process, which often is needed for internal efficiency, but don't lose focus of the customer experience. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think I would take what you just said and sort of take it one level further, and that is where I would and do guide companies today is let the customer's feedback, and I use that term very generically, just any sort of understanding of the customer, inform you on where you should be looking for your inefficiencies. Yes, of course, there is a need for companies to be profitable. This is not, we're not running nonprofits. We're not running charities here. Of course, charities actually do exist and they want to be efficient. They want to delight their customers as well. So with that profit mindset, you can't just, okay, the customers want X, Y, and Z, therefore we're going to do it. But by letting your customers inform you what is most important to them, and then you taking the layer of, okay, what are the business actions? What are the business activities that I can do with that input to then both make my business more profitable, create greater revenue? Combining those two worlds together from an execution perspective, that's what unlocks the tangible business value. If you just focus on what the customer says and you don't have any process or anything like that, then you're going to bend over backwards to delight one customer. And great, that customer's happy, but then you've pissed off the other 99. If you don't focus on the customer as you're doing your efficiencies like you were asking, then what you're going to do is create a bad experience just more efficiently. And I think that's where a lot of companies find themselves getting in trouble, especially right now. And we're recording this in 2024, especially in the US and I think in other regions of the world. Cost cutting is absolutely the focus of a lot of companies right now.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And that leads to those process efficiencies, right?
But there's a danger of focusing on things that would, like you said, anger the customer, frustrate the customer. Contact center is a real easy place for people to focus on, right? So, oh, I'm just going to whack all my agents, or I'm exaggerating, of course, but I'm going to lay them all off and, oh, well, the whole times will go up, but man, I'm more efficient. Right. But if your customers hate you as a result, great. You may have gotten that sugar high of the cost cut and yay, you made your quarterly numbers and you let your shareholders, be happy that quarter. But because you pissed off your customers, you have found yourself in a medium and longer term situation where the revenue is not going to be there. So instead, what are your customers telling you is inefficient? And let that guide where you can get better. Your customers might want you to be more digital in their contact. Your customers might want you to find more self-service options. Let the customers guide you towards that rather than just assuming this is how we're going to make things more efficient.
Well, using a call center example, for example, let's just kind of brainstorm here. If someone is looking to basically shorten the time of calls, and have more efficiency with their operators, one would say to cut costs, let's just automate everything, right? And you know how you and I feel about automated phone systems, right? But that doesn't mean you can't strike a balance, right? In other words, you can automate it to the point you have good choices, and those good choices lead to the right person to talk to address your needs quickly. Now that I think what I'm trying to get at is I think you bring up an interesting point about processes that are internal focused, but mostly those processes are focused on efficiencies, cost cutting, so on and so forth. But don't forget the customer experience. And I would ask you, which is going to take the precedence, the customer experience or the efficiency internally?
You know what Darshan, I'm gonna say that that's a false question. Is that I'm gonna say that doesn't have to be a binary choice. Now, there may be some of your listeners are like, oh, okay, nice, unicorn and rainbow, Rick, that's great. You're gonna find ways to make your customers. I get it. There are times, there are realities that no, you know what, we've got to be more crisper here. I would submit though that company really evaluate how you got to that point. If you're really at that point that you're going to do things that are efficient so that you can stay in business but are incredibly damaging to the customer's experience, that's a point of introspection of really how did we get here, and deeper than probably what you and I can talk about here in our chat. So that would be where I'd guide a company is let's go through that exercise. Now, going into kind of the other aspect, let's stay in the contact center vein. Most, and I'm going to use that somewhat loosely, customers really don't want to talk to someone. They want to be able to self-serve. And I recognize there are data points that show us that some of that's generational, some of that's regional. In general, though, let's just accept that. How about this? There's a segment of people that would say, look, I just want to get things done. And if you talk to the customer, whether literally talk to them or understand what they're telling you, then you can know which use cases they are actually quite comfortable, not just comfortable with, but prefer being digital. The very almost cliche example that I use is, do you like to call? Now, I'm talking to a restaurateur here, so you may have a different perspective, but I don't want to call to make a restaurant reservation. One, it makes me anxious to know, did it really get written down? Am I really in the book? I love a digital solution for that. But when my flight is canceled and I'm stranded in Fort Lauderdale, I don't want to work with the app. I want a human because the app frequently gives me an option that is not helpful. I want to work with a human who can problem solve together.
Well, that makes sense. I think you have to give people options for sure, right? It's not just one all or nothing yet.
Yeah, and there's a whole category. I don't think we're going to get into Gen AI or that kind of thing, but there's a whole category of you talked about shortening the call, and I'm not one that says, okay, let's make sure we shorten the calls. I think I would rather just let's make sure we only have the calls that exist because the customer wants the call that exists, and then make it as efficient as possible. The ideal world is not a customer navigating through a menu, but that the system, and I realize I'm being a little bit some unicorn rainbow here, but the system recognizes the customer, anticipates why the customer is calling, has already prompted the agent with the customer, the problem, and the likely solution, and is able to guide the customer through that way. So there's not the, hey, okay, tell me about your problem, tell me about, why are you calling sort of thing. What if we use our understanding of the customer? And an easy example is if we know that a shipment is delayed, if we know that we committed to provide something to the customer that wasn't provided, well, we know that in our system. So we should likely assume that if there's an inbound call from that customer, not only do we know that, we, using technology, already have a solution for them.
And that's going to really require a company to have a strong back end system to be able to do that. Yeah.
That's where, when we talk about technology improvements, that's where I want to encourage companies to really focus on. It's not just about, all right, man, how can we get rid of 80%? Everybody saw that. Was it Klarna? I can't remember now which one, but hey, it was able to perform the function of 700 agents and the customers actually preferred it. And so let's just get rid of all of our agents. I think that's a naive view. There's a different approach to technology that a customer would value and then be able to really appreciate the digital solution, giving both the operational efficiency that we're talking about and the customer experience improvement that the customer seeks.
You talked earlier about this. This was an evolution that you got to talk about customer experience, but it seems nowadays it actually starts with customer experience and goes the other way, does it not?
I think it depends on who you're talking to, especially now. I talk a lot about the 2023 reckoning in the CX world. And there's an element of the customer experience brand that has been tarnished. And it's been tarnished because there's been a lack of delivery of tangible business results. While folks like you and me know that starting with the customer is the right way to do it. Unlike, say, 5 years ago, I no longer think that there is a built-in bias in the boardroom towards that. Instead, it's incumbent on folks like me and others in the customer experience world to explain, hey, we're not here to improve experience. Now, that's going to sound weird. We're here to improve your business results. And we're going to use experience as a way to improve your business results. But we're not here just to make customers happier. We're here to improve your business results.
And how do most people recognize that what you're saying is true?
Tangible dollars. One of the examples that comes from a client of mine, it's a couple years ago. We knew that the cancel rates were higher than what we wanted. This wasn't technically SaaS, but just visualize this being like SaaS, subscription based. Customers can leave at any point. They don't experience the full benefit of the program if they don't stay through the whole program. And of course, the company doesn't benefit from the customer if they don't stay through the whole program. And the cancel rates were too high. Well, instead of just, okay, how can we sell harder? How can we, expand our market share? Well, we did a voice of the customer exercise. We really looked at what the customers were telling us, not just after they left, because guess what? Most customers don't tell you after they leave, but what are the problems that they're experiencing, both the ones they tell us about and the ones that we observe before they get to that cancel point? And how can we improve that? And by improving that, we were able to reduce the cancel rates by X%, and it resulted in $50 million of increased revenue. So to answer your question, when I sort of cheekily say, tangible dollars, that's how we prove this, is we say, look, if you do this, these are the improvements, and this is the likely business result improvement that'll be. And it can be increased revenue. That's great. There are also cost reductions that exist out of listening to what your customers are telling you their pain points are.
Yeah, I think you made a point earlier, and I think it's a very valid one, that you often can help, your customers can help you find their pain points, and those pain points are the ones that can lead to the areas that need the better processes, right?
Absolutely. And even like your customers can inform you if your customers are having to escalate. A particular issue is not resolved at a particular function level department, and there's escalations. Well, first of all, learning why is it being escalated? Things happen. Escalations are there, but how efficient is your escalations process? That's an example of, by looking at what the customers are experiencing, they're experiencing escalations, and it's a nightmare for them to go through it. Well, let's make that process more efficient. I've saved my cost, right? And just by focusing on that, I've improved my cost. Then by focusing on what are the reasons for the escalations, I start to improve experience and increase revenue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we're talking a lot about customer experience and voice of customer. Please tell us exactly the differences and how you approach each.
Oh, I like the way you asked that, because I'm going to answer it slightly differently, is that I don't see them as different. I see them as complementary. I see them as voice of the customer. It's an influential key component of delivering overall customer experience. And part of that is, when a lot of folks hear voice of the customer, they hear the word survey. And I will always, well, I shouldn't use the word always, but at least for the near term, I will be on my soapbox. I will be pounding my shoe on the desk saying VOC does not equal survey. Voice of the customer is simply our customers are telling us information, either tangibly. Customer says X, customer types X, customer sends an email, or customer speaks on a contact, and we've listened to what they've said in that contact. There's also customer behavior. I had the head of fan experience for the Orlando Magic, which is an NBA, National Basketball Association team here in the US, the Pro Basketball League. And she told a story of her customers said, hey, we would love to have healthier options in our concessions there at the arena. And so they thought, all right, great. Let's go put in healthier. Let's get the salads there. Let's put the sparkling water there. What do you bet the fans continued to buy? Beer, nachos, hot dogs. Of course. If they had only used what the customer's voice said, like the actual, hey, this is what I'm saying, and didn't look at the customer behavior, they would make mistakes based off of that. And so I tell that story to say, hey, you not just what they say, but what they do, weaving all that together is what creates your voice of the customer program. Not all of it. It's what creates your customer listening posts. Then how do you analyze and act on it? That's what makes up a voice of the customer program. That's why it's not just about survey and score, it's listen and act. That's what then allows you to create this great overall, and even forget it, great, even just good, consistently good customer experience, which your customers are expecting your brand promise to deliver.
So on this podcast, we talk about aha moments, which are often insights. So I'm curious, how do you define an insight?
Let me start reverse. Here's how I would not define insight, and that is information. There is a lot of information in a voice of a customer program. There is what the customer says, what the customer has typed, and then the behaviors that I described, all of that. That's information. Insight is extracting that into a way that I can then either make a business decision based off of that, take an actual action based off of that, or design make a choice for the future. So to me, an insight is going from all of the information into something that allows me, the business, to take a tangible action and go forward with it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think maybe I might add, and you can tell me if you agree, is an insight as at the end of it, it's a core truth that you realize, right? That you can act on, right? And so I'm just curious, let's just kind of brainstorm like your example of the Orlando Magic and about the concession stand. I'm sure people do want healthier options, but what could they have done to maybe enact that better or to take that insight to the next level that we're talking about?
Well, and fortunately, in a case like this, they actually did the right thing. So the Orlando Magic did the right thing. They didn't over-index on this. What they came to realize, this is almost actually, I kind of like that you brought us here. Until this moment, for me, June 27th at 9:26 a.m. For me, I'd never thought about it. And I've told this story for 4 years now.
Are you saying we're having an aha moment, Rick?
I think we are. Holy crap! Is the information was fans said they wanted healthier options. The information was the fans didn't order healthier options. The insight that they did get was fans wanted the perception of healthier options. They wanted to see that salad was on the menu. They wanted to see that sparkling water was on the menu, even if they still made the choices that they wanted to make away from that. But so the information were those first two pieces. The insight was they wanted the perception of it, and using that insight allowed them, okay, let's not over order, because salads are a disposable item, right? You over order, then it's just waste. So using that insight allowed them to make the right business choices around the concessions and what their fans wanted as far as an experience.
Interesting. So I think basically they wanted the fans wanted to feel like the company really cares about their health. But at the end of the day, they make their own choices, but at least they have the option.
And of course, people did order the salads. It wasn't that, there was this one, it's like, it's not like the burger house that you've got down the street that has that one bottle of Dom Perignon that they're really hoping to sell kind of thing. That's actually a true story. We've got a burger place that jokes that they've got the one bottle. It's not like that. The salads were sold. They just knew not to buy as much as, and, stock as what the initial input might have said that they should do.
Yeah, there's I'm sure sometimes people always got a burger. Every once in a while got a salad too, so they felt healthier as well. But I think it's interesting.
I guess I don't know those people because I'm not those people. Can I get a little more nacho cheese poured on there? That's me.
So, do you feel people today are buying products or experiences?
It depends. In the U.S., there are hardly there just aren't domestic. There are not U.S. based carriers that many people would say, man, I love the experience on that flight. But the product of getting me from airport A to airport B safely and on time is valuable enough that people overlook the experience. So that is an example of product winning over experience.
Well, I think that's also an example of not having choice, as many choices, right? But what if you did have a carrier that gave you the experience and the same product?
And I think that's where I was going with the international aspect of it. Is when it comes to when I was flying to Asia, I can tell you which carriers that I chose to fly. They were not the US carriers. I found myself, and I haven't flown them in years, so I assume the experience is still the same, but it was great then. I was always on Cathay Pacific because I got a great experience. Heck, this is really wonky, but airline people know that the actual airline letter codes for Cathay Pacific are CX. So it's just built right into their airline code. So yeah, you're right that when there is choice choosing experience, it's not an answer. And you can almost hear it me sort of hedging as I'm going through this. It's not an answer that can be delivered as binary as that because price is a part of experience. Product is a part of experience. So it's not that you either have product or you have experience. The product itself is the experience. The pricing is the experience. And so it can be difficult to sort of disconnect from those.
True, but in a world of where you have many parity products, correct, then the distinguishing factor can become and often is becoming more and more the experience. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, I believe certainly I believe it. I was consulting for Bose. Gosh, it was 6 years ago, and Bose was really ramping up. They've since shut it down, but they really were ramping up their retail in person, physical brick and mortar retail experience, and they were doing that because except for those that are true audiophiles, not folks like me that have ruined my hearing from way too much loud music in my teenage years, the upper end audio products tend to be somewhat similar. Comparing a Bose to a Sonos or other products, in the mind of the customer, there wasn't as much differentiation. And I recognize that audiophiles will now hate me for saying that, but the general population doesn't see it that way. The in-store experience was designed to make it so attractive that it was not a transactional type thing, but it was an experiential purchase that a customer did. And therefore, they would be purchasing more Bose products because of the experience that they had in the store when the products themselves would be somewhat equal. And I put that with the asterisk there, but equal enough in the customer's eyes.
Sure. Yeah, I understand. You often talk about a story about being lost in the Arizona desert without a map and how that is a metaphor for business leaders today. Tell me more about that story.
Yeah, I debated long and hard whether I wanted to put that story out there because it doesn't put me in the best light. I'm actually an Eagle Scout, right? So I did my backpacking, I did my camping, I've got my outdoorsman type skill set from my past. And yeah, there was this one time it was out in not the most remote. I'm well beyond those days, but I was out there. And even though I had what I thought were the right tools, my phone, I thought I was equipped correctly. I didn't have a physical map, but who needs that, right? You got your phone. I thankfully had enough water. I had enough of kind of the basics. But especially when you get out there, the trails can have a way of sort of disappearing. It's not as walking through a forest, you're walking out in the desert. And I kind of came to the realization that I wasn't entirely clear how to get back to the trailhead. I don't know that I necessarily would have been lost for weeks, right? It wasn't necessarily one of those stories because I was still in the ecosystem of where I was hiking. I understood it, but I didn't know where to go next to get me back to the trailhead. And thankfully, and not again, I don't want to overstate this. I wasn't in a desperate state. I wasn't laying on the ground, sun parched, but someone else was hiking the trail, came alongside, and I just asked them. I said, "Which way to the trailhead? I don't know where I am. I'm lost." And they helped navigate me to the objective that I wanted to get to, home. I wanted to get to the trailhead and get done with the hike. And then it became clear to me that that was a metaphor for how I work with businesses today. There are some of the best leaders out there. They're the Eagle Scouts of their business. They are well equipped. They know exactly what they need. They actually are prepared. They have all the things that they need to be successful. But then something happened. Either the path got a little less clear or one of their tools failed them. And I use that metaphorically, not necessarily literally systems. They're just sort of stuck. They know kind of where they need to go, but not necessarily. And they certainly know what their objective is. They need a navigator to come alongside them and say, hey, the trailhead's over here. And either, hey, the trailhead's over here, good luck, enjoy, or hey, let me walk alongside you, guide you there, make sure you get there successfully so that you don't get lost in the desert again. And that Arizona desert experience has been one that I've been able to use in the business context of helping businesses navigate to what their objective is, which is tangible business results, increased revenue, reduced costs through the application of experience and successful experience design.
Mhm. What would you say are the three missteps most companies do when it comes to customer experience design?
Well, the first is actually this may be one, two, and three, but we'll see. Thinking you're listening to the customer when you're not. And so there's a lot of categories there. One very easy one is, well, I send out customer surveys and I get feedback from my customers via surveys. Bleh. Surveys almost are dead. There's still value in them. I put information on a survey and companies respond to me. And so there's still some value. It's not the end all be all. And there are still so many companies that think that that is where you listen to your customer. So item one would be, thinking you're listening to your customer, but you're not.
I'm just going to help you there because I agree with you, and I'm just going to side around with you. But I think a lot of times people need to realize our survey is only as good as the questions and the answer choices.
Preach. Oh, preach. Hallelujah.
But how do you get to good questions, good answer choices? That's where you need conversations with the customer, right? And that's what and the way to use it properly, because both tools are actually quite effective, is you have those conversations early on and often enough that you keep improving your surveys, because the real goal of your survey is not to, let's say, discover those insights or those kernels of knowledge. It's actually to quantify what percentage of people actually think and feel this way or not.
It's an and statement, not an or statement. I think both are valuable. You get the insights and you can quantify it, because information is a lot of customers are yelling about something. Insight is, yeah, but this is the theme that matters. This is the one that we want to go after. And you're right. Survey design is so vital if you're still, playing in that survey space. I've got three for you. And the second one is not doing anything with it. There are so many companies that love to get their information back, their customer data, survey data, and they put it up on the wall in their monthly business review, and they clap when the score goes up and shed a tear when the score goes down, and they do nothing. That and act is one of the key, well, duh, it is the way you get to creating the tangible business value from experience work.
You're absolutely right. A lot of companies fail on that. And part of the reason is, and correct if you disagree, is often they have questions in there that are nice to know, but they don't know what to do with that information once they have it, right? And so I often say, when you ask the question in a survey, ask yourself, okay, I have data on this question. I have 20 people saying this, whatever it is. What am I going to do with that data? Is that going to just be, oh, it's nice FYI, or can I actually act upon it? And that's where I think often people make mistakes with surveys.
What business decision am I going to make based off of the results of this question? If you, not you, if the general you cannot answer that question, don't put that question in the survey. And I'm one of those that I only think there should be three questions on a survey. And I realize I'm being a little simplistic here, but it's whatever score you want, because scores are important. Tell me why you gave me that score, and do you want me to contact you about the information you put in here? I'm a big fan of 3-question surveys. Anything else I feel like is often extraneous. And I know there are edge cases. I get it. But if I'm ever asked what's the perfect survey, it's a 3-question survey, and it's that one. Do I have time for the
Number
third?
3? Yes, of course.
Not demonstrating the actual business value to your non-CX peers. Those of us that sit inside of the customer experience ecosystem, I saw great, I haven't finished reading it yet, but Sam Stern today posted something about, and Nicole, I'm not going to get her last name right, but Nicole Ornelius talked about the cult of CX. And those of us inside of CX know and believe that improving experience will create tangible business results. The chief operating officer does not. The CFO does not. They don't walk into that conversation with the inherent religious-esque belief that this is. They need to be shown that that is. So are you listening to your customers successfully? Have you acted on what you have learned? And then are you showing the rest of the company the business value that is being created from those actions that you listened to create those actions? Those three things, the weakness in those three areas are where CX has its challenges right now. And those are the three areas that companies and CXers would be wise to improve going forward to be able to create those tangible business results.
Mhm. And have you found a way to convince the CFOs and the CEOs to focus on the customer experience?
Two ways, actually. One is just hard dollars.
But you want to get them to do it. The hard dollars come after you do it and they see the difference, right? I mean, you can give examples of other companies, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's historical proof. There's that aspect of it, right? Like any initiative, every initiative has a predicted ROI, and they're a tech. Forget customer experience for a second. Installing a new software has a believed ROI that is only proven in the future, but putting the exercise in place to show what the benefit is of spending on whatever initiative it is, the discipline around that it needs to be applied to CX as well. The second is, and this is kind of a secret weapon around CX. I just mentioned installing a system. Man, you're not going to get a lot of emotional stories around that, but bringing in the customer's story into the decision making has incredible impact. I worked for a client where it was a contact center. It was the operational meeting. The meeting was an hour and a half, and I timed it. The first one I went to was an hour and 17 minutes before the customer was mentioned. And I would let the team be aware of that. And their eyes kind of get big because they cared about the customer. They just got in their operational mindset. The next week and weeks forward, we started with customer story. And it was really impactful to see how business decisions were being made now with the customer in mind. And so to answer the question of how can we do this, it's proving hard dollars, both historically and forecasting hard dollars, and then the emotional side of it, the secret weapon of bringing in the customer story to pull at heartstrings and really bring these initiatives to life, that these are impacting actual humans.
So, what do you see as the future for customer experience and voice of customer?
Very technology, especially the latter part, that we are going to enter into an era where we are able to no longer be constrained by our human capacity to absorb that information that we talked about earlier. And when we are constrained by our human capacity, we then do things like sampling, and we can only look at a portion of it. And we create, understand it scientifically, statistical samples, and what that means. Now, and there's silos to this. Okay, I'm going to listen to customer calls. I'm going to read voice of the customer. I'm going to watch focus groups or whatever the choices are. With technology, and I'm not saying it's just a magic wand, but with the work that is going into creating a technology suite that allows you to listen to all of that and weave it all together so you're not siloing your understanding of the customer, bringing that together into those clear themes of understanding that then drive very clear business actions. That's where I see this going forward. Whether it's labeled CX, that's the part I'm not so sure about, because right now I don't know. The brand is tarnished. Regardless, though, there will always be customers, and there will always be a need for a business to try to increase their revenue and reduce their costs. And so that technology solution around voice of the customer is going to get so much better. And that's where we're going to be able to get much better about understanding our customer and then deciding what to do with what we learn.
What role do you see AI playing in any of this?
Everything. What I just described, and the thing about the letters AI, right? We've been doing AI for decades, but it's really these LLMs, it's the Gen AI type stuff that is there that is really what's changing things. And I am not going to put myself out there as an expert in this space. There are some others that, like, folks, if you're not already following and listening to Bill Stakos, you need to be following and listening to Bill Stakos. It has a lot of great insight in this world. The very just simple question is, yeah, it's going to completely be there because I talked about that human capacity. This is sort of Iron Man-esque, that we are able to put on the suit of AI and be able to then consume and absorb that much more when it comes to understanding our customers.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, Rick, if you could have lunch or dinner with anybody in the field of CX or VOC, who would it be and why?
Well, first of all, because I know what you've told me about your restaurant, I want to have lunch with you. So I want to go to your restaurant. But that's because of the food you described. So I cannot wait to get to Bangkok and enjoy what you've got there.
You're most invited.
I appreciate that. I really do. And I do. It's going to happen. Just don't
Take
know
me up
when.
on it. Take me up on it.
Oh, I like that. That's a nicer way to challenge me, Rick. All right, let's
Yeah,
see.
yeah. Go
I
on, take
like
me
that.
up on it.
You know what? I think I'm going to answer that with Bill Stakos. I already Bill and I have engaged online, right? We've had conversations just like this, but I would love to meet him in person, and I know it's going to happen. But that's the insight that he shares from a perspective that it doesn't come across as kind of some of the aloof influencers that are out there. There's just a grounded reality that I really appreciate about what he shares and how he speaks about it, that I think that sitting down with him, there's so much that I could learn coming out of that.
Sounds great. I think it'd be a great lunch. Maybe you can have the lunch at my place, both of you. Even better.
Ooh. Oh, I feel very confident that Bill would be on board with that.
Well, Rick, thank you for joining me on the podcast. I appreciate it and sharing your aha moments. And I look forward to continuing a conversation in future episodes about
Thank you
customer
so much.
experience and what you learn and what you can tell us maybe next time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I had a blast.
Thanks a lot.
Getting to AHA was brought to you by iResearch. To find out more about us, head to iResearch.com and make sure to search for Getting to AHA in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else podcasts are found. And don't forget to click follow to ensure you don't miss any future episodes. Thank you for listening.